Have you finished your Christmas shopping? I hope not, because the world is going to end on December 21st, 2012. An ancient Mayan calendar ends on that day. So if you bought things at yesterday's art fair, you better enjoy them now. This hype is the latest in the apocalyptic frenzies that capture the world's imagination. The Houston Museum of Natural Science has launched an exhibit to demystify the Mayan myth that a doomsday will arrive on December 21, 2012. The Mayans had several calendars, each with a different count. The ritual cycle was about 260 days long, the time between planting the corn and harvest, or possibly the time from human conception to birth. They also had a 365-day calendar similar to our own, and the two met once every 52 years, which also matched the average life expectancy of a person living at that time, said Rebecca Story, an anthropologist from the University of Houston. The king, however, needed a long count calendar to create legacy. It is this count which begins with Maya creation and ends 3 days before Christmas Eve, and it is the focus of the end of the world beliefs. This count is broken up into 13 400-year segments. The last one ends December 21, 2012. Now, the ancient Mayans believed that on December 22, they would just start counting again from zero. The Mayan prophecy is really silent about what happens at the end of the calendar. It just ends. But it is amazing to me that there's this fascination in archaeology and stuff that's just sparked by this sense of, what did these people long ago think when their calendar ended? And I wonder, in general, what is the fascination with the end of the world? Here in the West, it centers around the apocalyptic tales of the book of Revelation. In Revelation, evil people and monsters are destroyed so that a remnant of the pure righteous remain. And it borrows heavily from Jewish apocalyptic literature, particularly the book of Ezekiel, which says the Jews and God will vanquish their enemies in the land of Gog and Magog. In Islam, the end of the world is referred to as the hour, and involves Jesus returning to Damascus to slay an antichrist who has put the planet in peril. Damascus is a pretty troubled part of the world. Maybe this will happen on December 21st. Jesus will come and slay an antichrist who puts the planet in peril. With the Antichrist out of the picture, a period of perfect harmony will ensue. Jesus will later die a natural death, which will usher in a time of destruction that leads directly to the hour. In Buddhism, in the Pali Canon, Buddha is reported as saying, "After a last vast interval, a seventh sun appears, and then monks this great earth and the monarch of mountains flare and blaze and become one mass of flame. And now from earth and mountains burning and consuming, a spark is carried by the wind and goes as far as the worlds of the gods and the peaks of Mount Sinarud, burning, consuming, perishing, go down in one mass of fire and crumble for 100, yea, 500 leagues. And this great earth and Sinarud, the monarch of mountains, when consumed and burnt, neither ashes nor soot remain, just as when ghee or oil is consumed and burnt. Neither ashes nor soot remains. so it is with the great earth. Thus, monks, impermanent are the constituents of existence, unstable and non-eternal. So much so that this alone is enough to weary and disgust one with all constituent things and emancipate therefrom. Therefore, monks, do those who deliberate and believe say this: this earth and Sinnaru, the monarch of mountains, will be burnt and perished and exist no more, excepting those who have seen the path. I didn't know that Buddhism had such a fiery apocalyptic story. Another story that's a little bit colder comes from Norway. Ragnarok, the doom of the gods. This is the story from which Wagner based his opera of the Rings, where it is indeed over when the fat lady sings. This is the cosmos of Norse mythology. It will be preceded by the winter of winters. 3 such winters will follow each other with no summers in between. Conflicts and feuds will break out, even between families. All morality will disappear. This is the beginning of the end. Heimdall will sound his horn, calling the sons of Odin and the heroes to the battlefield. From all corners of the world, giants, gods, dwarfs, demons, and elves will ride towards the huge plain of Vigrid, where the last battle will be fought. The 9 worlds will burn, and friends and foes alike will perish. The earth will sink into the sea. After destruction, a new and idyllic world will arise from the sea and be filled with abundant supplies. Some of the gods will survive, others will be reborn. Wickedness and misery will no longer exist, and the gods and men will live happily ever after. And the descendants, Leif and Lifthrashir, will inhabit this earth. But besides these religious apocalypses, we are facing scientific ones. One is the population explosion. As populations rise, it may get harder to feed people, and famine will be rampant. Another is global warming. Increased carbon production has created worldwide climate change, which will result in rising sea levels, inundating our major cities. Superstorm Sandy is just a taste of the future peril. Another possibility is a meteor strike. As I saw on the Weather Channel, on this wonderful disaster program they used to have, it could happen tomorrow. And space centers across Europe and the USA are tracking near-Earth objects, trying to develop scenarios to prevent our being struck by a meteor. And then there are political apocalypses, like we might fall off a fiscal cliff or hit a debt ceiling. Why are people attracted to these end-of-the-world scenarios? I've come up with about 4 reasons. The first is that oppressed people hope that someday their enemies will be defeated. And they take hope in these stories. Dominating people, on the other hand, reassure themselves that they will be saved. And some people use the future as an excuse for doing nothing today. And fourthly, one group of people wants to frighten another group of people into behaving the way they want them to behave. In the category of oppressors, we have the Jews in Babylon and the stories from Ezekiel and Daniel. where they were exiled to a foreign land, and they had these stories of how Israel would be restored. And then later on, these stories were remembered by the Christians who were being oppressed by Rome in the 1st and 2nd century. And we got the book of Revelation. And then there's, I think, the most oppressed people in the world, my people, the hippies, who know that you have to live off the grid to save yourself from the commercialism of this world. And the Norse people, who felt oppressed by their gods, really took heart in a story where they just killed each other off so we could live in peace. And then there's the dominators. Anybody who wants to prove that they are the one true religion has a story that says at the end, everybody of every other religion will be destroyed. And politicians often use apocalyptic fear to get what they want. Fear of nuclear war, weapons of mass destruction. They use these as an excuse to manipulate the people and say that we will have to win this, and we're going to win this war. We'll be able to go in Iraq and come out in a week or so because God is on our side. And the great thing about these political things is that they kind of dovetail the apocalyptic book of Revelations. It's like, if we win a war in the Middle East, we control the region and its resources. If we lose, Jesus comes back. This dangerous combination has a significant number of politicians looking for the next war. White supremacists worry about overpopulation because most of the population growth is coming from darker-skinned people, and they warn us of the decline of so-called civilization. These are ways that the dominant class tries to embrace apocalyptic literature. And then the apocalypse as an excuse to do nothing. Why try to fix the environment if God's going to destroy the world anyway? If an asteroid could wipe us out, we might as well party. Overpopulation will fix itself when the world gets too crowded. War, famine, and disease will take care of that problem. And if some ancient civilization said time would end on December 21st, I am going to avoid the stores and all the crowded shopping this year. And the Buddhist apocalypse also falls into this category. It has the burning and everything, and that the believers will somehow exist. But the real lesson of that apocalyptic story is, well, since the world's going to be destroyed, you might as well not bother becoming attached to the world and live without attachment now. And then I think the reason of reasons for apocalyptic stories is scaring other people to behave. It's the idea that you want the people who tell the most frightening stories tend to think that they're going to make it through somehow. They'll be raptured, or there'll be some little out or way that they survive. But they have this story that kind of goes like this: join my religion or die. Reduce carbon emissions or die. Practice birth control or die. Develop technology to destroy asteroids or die. Vote for my political party or die from lack of health care, terrorism, overtaxation, back alley abortions, pollution, death panels, deficit spending. The list goes on and on. And scaring people works sometimes. but not always. We just went through an election where I think 65 million people voted for one candidate and 60 million voted for another candidate, and 93 million eligible voters stayed home. People who refused to be scared, refused to be moved. People are stubborn. We don't like to change. Some will ignore your warnings, distracted by whatever pleasure or shiny object passes by. And others will be active skeptics. They will question your religion. They will question your science. After all, it's only a theory. They will doubt anything that causes them to reconsider their ways and change their lives. Why do we need these deadlines at all? I think all of us in our work create artificial deadlines or have real deadlines that sometimes make us do our work when otherwise we would not want to. We have this sense of things will go horribly wrong if I don't do this today. I wonder why we don't seem as able to tap in to hope as a motivation. It's one of the things that I wonder about, and in true Unitarian Universalist fashion, I will not give you an answer because I still don't know why we don't seem as motivated by hope as we do by fear. I mean, can people practice religion for the purpose of loving others rather than hoping that others would be destroyed? Can we take care of our air and water and soil for the sake of healthiness today? Just to not poison ourselves today, just to be healthy. Or do we need to be scared by melting glaciers and cities in ruin? Can we try to make the world a better place right now, rather than waiting for a catastrophe, or rather than waiting for a hero to save us? Waiting for the end of the world will not solve our problems. If we are oppressed, we must find a way to stand up today. The oppressor wants us to feel shame. Today, we can start believing we are worthwhile. Eleanor Roosevelt said, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. Refuse to give oppressors consent. Today, we can claim our equality." And if we find ourselves sitting in the seat of privilege, let us work to extend our pleasures to all. Do not fear and destroy the downtrodden. Invite them in to share our riches. Do not wait for the day where other people are destroyed. Work for the day when everybody is included. We should not let waiting for the end of the world keep us from living today. Loving your neighbor, your family, and your enemy is important, whether the world lasts 10 minutes or 10,000 years. The future is uncertain. Do not count on it, and do not worry about it. Live each day by eternal principles. Seek the ideals of peace, love, justice, beauty, conservation, and creativity Each are an end in themselves and worthy of practicing, whether or not there is a tomorrow. Every new day can be the end of the old world. The past is gone and the world is constantly changing. We can cherish what has been good and strive to make it better. Know that the world ends every day. So make the best of this day. And if we make it to tomorrow, celebrate the chance to try again.